Hey, this is Seth, and in this video I want to share with you how to disappear the entire conversation around this thing called imposter syndrome so that you can move forward confidently and happily towards your goals in life. So imposter syndrome doesn't actually exist. It is a term that has been popularized to express an internal feeling state of fear, anxiety, inadequacy, feeling like you're a fraud or you don't belong. And I know this very well. I've felt this many times in my life. My students have felt this. And everyone, even very successful, famous people, feel inadequate or self-doubt or things like that all the time. So I want to give you power in this situation. And in order to have power, we have to redefine, re-examine, and push up against some shared assumptions that people make about what it is to be a human being. Now, it's very good that we live in a time when mental health is respected and that you can come on YouTube and understand that you're not alone in feeling this phenomenon called imposter syndrome. It's fantastic. They didn't have this when I was growing up, but pretty much every human being has felt this at some point. And imposter syndrome is commonly known as feeling inadequate or feeling less than, not good enough, or that you don't belong in a particular situation. It could be a new job, could be on a date, in a relationship, out in public, could be anything. But it's a feeling experience. And the problem is that once we label something, now that mental health is so openly discussed, which is great, we label all this stuff. And we even gave it this word syndrome, imposter syndrome, which is actually very disempowering. It was supposed to be empowering for people because distinguishing something and being able to say, this feeling of like I don't belong, that's imposter syndrome. That gives you power. That gives you power to distinguish a feeling, because feelings, the reason people struggle with emotions and thoughts so much is because they're not tangible. It's so easy with something physical. If you have a cut on your arm, it's not like there's no real debate about, okay, you got to put alcohol on it, put a Band-Aid on it, done. But thoughts and feelings are not physically tangible. And so they can, spin out of control in our experience unless we are able to label and distinguish them. So distinguishing, I went into the job interview, I started feeling like I don't belong there. Good, now I'm experiencing this phenomenon known that people call imposter syndrome. But calling it a syndrome is almost like, let's say you got a cut on your arm, like I said, and you called it like blood syndrome. It's just a cut. You need to see it's a cut and treat it. But people have a feeling experience and they label it, and now you're walking around and you're believing that this thing called imposter syndrome is real, and it's not. The feelings and the thoughts are real, your experience is real, absolutely, and it's good to get validation to know that you should accept those feelings and understand them and have compassion and understand you're not alone. But don't compartmentalize it into a box, label it, and now identify with it. And this is the problem I have with some of my students. I'm realizing is that they will say, I have imposter syndrome. And now as soon as you say, I have this thing, and now it's like it's like almost saying this cut, I'm gonna have this cut forever, rather than understanding, it can actually heal. It's gonna heal and be gone, you'll never even remember it. Imposter syndrome is a feeling, experience, and a phenomenon. And if you can dig into that and understand, hey, I'm having the transitive, temporary experience of feelings of self-doubt or feelings of inadequacy in these certain situations, then you can actually do something about it, actually release those feelings and understand that that's not inherently who you are. It's just a temporary phenomenon. That's the first thing you need to distinguish. And then understand that the word imposter syndrome is also made up. It's made up. The more you think, I have this thing, the more real it becomes because your thoughts actually do have power. But if you look at it like it's just a temporary set of feelings that can change, then you do have power. So let's dig into this. How do you actually get clear on what is a thought, a feeling, and what's real? And this is really the secret to happiness in life. There's a woman named Byron Katie who wrote a book called Loving What Is. It's so simple. But one thing you realize, I've done a lot of self-work as well, is that human beings make up stories about life. our thoughts happen so quickly, our emotions happen so quickly, and what can happen, this happens a lot in relationships. Someone will do something, even if it's an innocent thing, and in our own hearts and minds, we make a judgment, we make a thought, it reminds us of something from the past, we attach an emotion, and suddenly we're no longer present with what's actually happening. We're in our own story, in our head. And when it comes to imposter syndrome, this is happening all the time, because the situations where people feel imposter syndrome is often some of the most triggering situations that human beings have, whether, again, a new job interview, on a first date, being out social with other human beings. These are situations that are going to trigger memories, thoughts, and emotions from the past. And if you just go in there without this distinction, without understanding that you are going to be feeling thoughts from the past, and that you're not those thoughts and you're not those feelings, then it's a really rough time. Now, a job interview is a great example because this often triggers for people memories of school, memories of being called on in front of the teacher, in front of the class by the teacher, not knowing the answer. And I've seen really smart people in my class, it's very normal that this happens, who know the stuff that they've learned about digital marketing, they know PPC or SEO, and in that first job interview, they just blank. And this has happened to me as well. You know the information, but the person asks it for you. It triggers a memory or a thought from a past experience, negative experience of being in a school situation. And suddenly these thoughts and emotions are so overwhelming that you literally can't think straight because you've kind of disconnected from the present moment and the thoughts and the feelings have taken over. So what can you do about that? Well, the thing you can do is, keep taking action. A lot of my students who, without even doing any internal work, if you just keep doing and they keep going to this job interview, the next job interview, the next job interview, by the third or fourth, it's like a muscle. They've naturally distinguished the present moment from the past and these thoughts and emotions. And now they're able to be present in the interview. And this just happens with everybody in almost anything you can think of. When I went to drive a car the first time, I was terrified. But 2 months later, I was feeling much more comfortable. But there are some exercises you can do to actually accelerate this process. So I'm going to lead you through my version of this exercise, but I do recommend reading Loving What Is. And what you can do is take a piece of paper, draw a line right down the middle, and write down what happened, and then the other side, write down the story. And that can include thoughts and emotions. And you'll be blown away by the things your mind comes up with. It could literally be like, I was at the job interview and the interviewer asked me a question and I answered the question. Story. I'm so stupid. I can't believe I said that. I should have said this. What am I doing here? I don't have any business being here. And you should just let yourself write down all the thoughts and feelings on the other side of the paper. Everything. Don't hold back. Let yourself see the thought process that is going on in the background. This gives you perspective and power. Because again, the reason we lose power is because this thing is running in the background. You don't even see it, and you don't know why. It's like, why did I freeze up? Why did I go, Because in your subconscious, or it's maybe not even your subconscious, but just behind your conscious mind, you were thinking all these negative things based on past experience. And you might be surprised. You might be writing like 2 or 3 pages of this stuff. But as you look at the piece of paper and you look at what happened and then the story, and you just see they're not the same. This is an incredibly transformative process. I have seen people, I've done seminars where people do this exercise, this type of thing, and there can be years of trauma that actually disappear in this distinction. People have been living, there is, of course, actual trauma, but what's more disempowering for people is the stories that we tell ourselves about what happened. And one of the things I often do in my course with students is just in level of encouragement is that people will come out of a job interview and they'll just be thinking, oh, I did it wrong. I'm so bad. I can't believe I did this. And I just basically say, listen, everything you're saying in your head is about 1,000 times worse than whatever the interviewer is thinking. And so many times they'll be like, oh, yeah, they gave me a call back. They said I did a good job. But in your head, because of these undistinguished stories and thoughts, you have this really, disempowering experience. So the way to accelerate this is to keep taking action, but write down on that piece of paper and separate what happened from the story. And that, to me, honestly, this is effective in many different areas of life. So I hope this perspective, I encourage you to actually try this out. because again, I respect the term imposter syndrome. I respect it when people are struggling with this, but my goal with you guys is to take you past it to a world where it doesn't even exist. Because remember, it's not a syndrome. It's a label used to define certain feeling experiences. And some of those, and if you dig into those feelings, what are those feeling experiences? What does it actually feel like? What are the actual thoughts that you experience when you're having so-called imposter syndrome? And write them down on a piece of paper, separate what actually is happening from these stories about imposter syndrome, and you will find you actually have a space inside of yourself that opens up. Even if it's just a little bit of space, it can be so much of a relief, so empowering to be like, yes, I was just experiencing fear or doubt or a thought that triggered fear or doubt from a long time ago. And now that I see that I am not that thought, I actually can think straight and let it go. But the biggest takeaway I hope you guys get from this is that, yes, you may be experiencing challenges based on, what we label as imposter syndrome, but you don't have it. You don't have this thing. Get into the habit of, if you're using labels for stuff, use it as a tool, not as to really define who you are or something that you have to deal with. Because again, the more you grip to this thing, I have imposter syndrome, I'm struggling with it, how do I overcome it? I need to overcome it, I need to get past it. The more you kind of like attach yourself to it. Rather than saying, this is a temporary experience I'm having, these are thoughts and feelings I've labeled as imposter syndrome, and here I'm going to distinguish those so I can move past them and actually feel power and peace and confidence as I move forward. Anyway, guys, I know this is a unique take on this topic. Let me know what you think. Was this helpful? Was this not helpful? Feel free to comment below. And let me know if you like this type of video, and I will see you in the next video.